Welcome, everyone, to today's XMTP Improvement Proposal Tech Review. Thank you all for being here. The webinar is being recorded for the convenience of those who can't attend live. And I thought we'd start off by taking a moment to acknowledge our mission as a community. We invite everyone who values open protocols, permissionlessness, and private and secure messaging that you own and control to join in this mission. And a part of that mission includes being able to propose XMTP improvement proposals, XIPs, like the one we are reviewing today. I'll put a few links in the chat for where you can learn more about the XIP process, so you may want to propose one of your own. But now for our main event, we have Coda, an XMTP core developer, here to present a draft of his XIP for profiles and greetings. I'll put a link to the XIP in the chat, but take it away, Coda.
Okay, we spent a lot of time thinking about how we're going to message other people, but I kind of want to just take a little bit of time to really think about how we connect between people. Right now, our identity is based around an inbox ID, which is a long string that nobody can memorize really realistically. So it's a bit of a hurdle connecting with other people, and I was hoping that we could propose something to make that much easier and simpler to increase engagement on the protocol, really. Let me just go really quick over the motivation. In this era of vibe coding and agent coding we have people that are vibe coding applications around XMTP quite quickly, and iterating on it quite quickly. Claude seems to do a pretty decent job of integrating with us, but there's the risk of that application becoming a little bit of a walled garden. Once you create an application that can message on XMTP, how do you talk to other people easily? This is an XIP that hopes to address that. Let's kind of just go through the flow and the technical specification while we have it in its current form. So let's say Alex wants to securely share the identity in any with users on any libxmtp app. First, they'll generate a profile with some basic information about themselves, and then they'll generate an ephemeral key an ephemeral public and private key and embed the public portion of that key inside this profile. They'll then generate a topic, and that topic will be a hash of the public key. And then they will post this profile as a message to that topic on that group. And it'll be the first message on that group, ideally, but not guaranteed. So it may be the second or the third. Alex will store a record of that profile in her database, and it will be automatically synced across all devices via device sync. So that way, all of their installations are in sync on these profiles. And then, like I mentioned, she'll publish that public profile to the generated topic, and then she will generate a new link. And this is the link that will get embedded in the QR code, this profile link will get embedded in the QR code for anybody to scan on any application, and they'll feed the data that's inside that QR code into libxmtp, and we will give them back this profile information. So if Bo comes along and scans this QR code that they posted on Twitter or their bio or wherever they found it on the internet, and if they scan it or are able to put it into any libxmtp app, they can feed that QR code data into libxmtp, and they'll get this profile back, and they'll immediately be able to universally know who they are and start the process to connect with Alex to get out of that walled garden. So this is the profile message. This is what will be embedded inside of the QR code. As you can see, it's quite light. All the real data sits inside of the profile message itself. So yeah, so the next thing that Bo does when he scans that QR code, he'll get the option to greet. On that profile link, he'll have to include some introductory information, his own name, along with right now an intent, but the only intent is DM. Maybe in the future, the intent could be other things like, hey, can you add me to this group? Or Like if we have contacts, say, can you add me to your contact list or whatever happens to mutate into in the future. So yeah, so Bo will then send this greeting message to this topic that contains Alex's profile, and it'll be the next message. Alex will be subscribed to this topic, so they'll get a notification that Bo has posted a greeting to this topic. This greeting will be encrypted with the public key that Alex provided up in her public profile so that only she can decrypt it. This greeting will contain information like inbox ID, Bo's name, a little introduction to kind of let Alex know who they are, an intent, which right now is just, hey, can you DM me? This pre-consent, which I will talk about in a second. And then, as Nick rightfully brought up, some validation fields so that Alex can check that this is actually a representative of the inbox ID that is specified. So, of course, Alex will check the signature against the installation ID, and then we'll, of course, download the inbox log and validate that that installation ID is in the inbox log. Any questions so far? Okay, so since Alex is subscribed to that topic, they're going to get a greeting. The idea is that when they receive the greeting message from that topic, they'll get a notification and, of course, a new entry in the greetings table, just in case they are not around to click the notification or they accidentally swipe it away. They'll have the ability to list these greetings historically. So these will be pending invites, really. This introduces a new thing called pre-consent. So when Bo sends Alex a message over this topic that says, hey, can you add me? We want this DM to be automatically consented because by the action of Bo sending Alex a greeting, that's an implicit consent with Alex right there. So we want the flow to be more natural and not get lost inside of the consent purgatory. So we're gonna have this new field or new consent type called pre-consent. It'll be a placeholder entity value that'll be passed along in the greeting, and then it'll be passed along back in the welcome metadata. And when Bo sees that in the welcome metadata, he'll match it up with the record that he has in the database and be automatically consented for that DM. Of course, it would have been much simpler to just embed an inbox ID into a QR code and scan that, but we don't want to open people up to spam or any undesired contacts. That's why there's a bit of like an obscured flow here, rather than the much simpler just throwing an inbox ID in there. Yeah, that's the proposal. What do you guys think? Tyler, what do you got, man?
I got a question on the pre-consent. Does that only work for the installation that is like sending the greeting?
Since pre-consent is a consent record, consent records are automatically synced between installations. So that pre-consent will be automatically synced for free. Now, one of the big questions of discussion is whether or not, because group topics are an immutable append-only endpoint, as Nick brought up here, he brought up a good thought here. He said that there might be intention with putting keys in the public and social media profiles. Every time you want to update your avatar, you're going to have to change that link. So the question is, do we want to create a mutable endpoint on the server for this? Like, is this going to be enough of a pillar of the protocol to justify adding a new endpoint for the server?
I wonder if there are ways we could get what we want without a new endpoint. Right now, we have both the profile and the greetings in the same topic. And so you can't really write more than one profile. You just want to have the profile be the first entry in the topic, and then everything that comes after it is a greeting. We could split those up, and then you could take the last entry in the topic instead of the first, and you could do updates to the profile so long as you keep the same public key.
That's a good potential solution.
Yeah, you could also just add another field for the topic to send the greeting on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or just
And
make
then
it
that way they would only have to subscribe to one,
yeah.
no
I
matter
mean,
how many times they publish this.
or you could just make it another hash with a topic. or a label. You take the topic ID, yep, append a label, and you hash it again. Okay. That was one of the questions that we had. Any other thoughts? And yes, Nick, the expectation, at least my idea was that it's random. It's just a random value.
And if that's the case, we might want to make it a byte array rather than a string.
Yes, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, with a view towards multiple app integrators and multiple consumers of public profiles, when we have the public profile with a name and an avatar and a short bio, we sort of have one unitary name where, a Coinbase integrator or a Convos integrator or a World integrator may choose to override that. In question of whether they are trampling on the same name or whether they're able to add name entries that are of the archetype name where you're able to choose from what that is, and then you have more of a map of identity like entities inside of a profile. Because on the other side, we also have the did concept that the community kind of adopts in general, and how does that map onto our public profiles? Because it in a centralized messenger with only one consumer as an app, it's really easy to say what your name is, but in different contexts, it might have different names or they might serve different purposes. But for the purposes of rendering, I might just want to go through and select the first name that's available and use that to pre-populate.
For what it's worth, we synchronize HMAC keys in a table called I think it's like profile settings. I forget the name specifically, but we could add in there and synchronize that as well.
Yeah, because I think the logical step to extend public profile is what we've been saying around, how do I verify and attest that I own this Twitter handle, or attest that I have, I identify with this public wallet address or whatever else. And those attestations feels like this is the same place for that to live. Is there a more generic way that we're piling on those proofs that I'm adding to my identity, rather than being very direct about name, avatar, and existing on the profile itself?
Yeah, it seems like the metadata field is at least where this proposal is intending to put some of that stuff, where you could have a well-known name for a metadata field of like my Twitter handle or whatever else. Hopefully they'd be verifiable as well. But
Yeah, it
maybe
feels
we do want more structure there.
a little bit of an opinionated perspective on that would be helpful, just in terms of adding signatures and force people to think about verifiability, and then maybe adding a little light structure versus strings. That the natural thing to do when presented with a map of strings is to throw strings in there and start making a sub protocol with different levels of conformance. It's just you grow an informal spec out of strings, versus with protobuf we at least have the opportunity to be more opinionated up front and create some structure.
Any other thoughts?
I have a question, just a clarification maybe. So this is not helping us with fixing the issue of finding people with their inbox ID, right? That's not the intention at all.
No, that is the intention.
But still, I need to share that link with the profile ID, etc., etc. So still, I don't have like a handle, for example, here.
Oh, okay. This is to embed that. It's to standardize the protocol. I mean, because anybody can create. If you create a vibe coded application around libxmtp, you could reverse engineer Convos's QR code format, which some people have done. But this is just taking that one level deeper and abstracting away the inbox ID. This is standardizing it in the protocol so that there's a standard link that you can see anywhere, and you can immediately get tangible, actionable information out of that.
And I think to your point, Mushtaba, this is if someone wanted to write the Hacker News Connect over XMTP system, this would allow us to have the structure to discover an inbox ID if someone were to generate this and then drop that link on their Hacker News profile. That you could go to their Hacker News profile, click on this link, and discover their inbox ID and continue chatting. you can clean that mechanism up to make it, searchable or whatever else as a product, but this sets the foundation for how you would make that connection. Whether you want to publish that somewhere else, the nice thing is that this makes this opt-in instead of inescapable, like a public address. When you put a public address out there, you're just kind of tied to that. That's your life now. But this is revocable in a good way. You can drop this and rotate it and continue on as long as someone hasn't connected with your inbox ID yet.
So thank you for the clarification, Mike. And so just clarification again for me. So we're kind of trying to mimic the DID here, the decentralization ID mechanism here for us, but I see it has a little bit of like maybe less dynamic here that we can merge or maybe integrate other profiles, like as you mentioned, Mike, I think about, okay, this is my Twitter handle or X handle or like my Twitch handle. It's here. You can verify it via these keys, etc., etc. I think that one is like more complex, more enriched, but this one is more lighter, just like a general information about my profile.
And like this, yeah, this creates discoverability. So that I will be able to connect with anybody anywhere on any app that as long as it has libxmtp embedded inside of it.
If I might, we have a question from Morgan in the chat just to tie it to something we just mentioned. So I like the idea of being able to revoke the shareable link, but what do you mean I can't revoke it once someone uses it? Thank you, Morgan.
I think maybe, yeah,
Oh,
you think you're in a better position to answer this than I am. Go ahead.
Oh, I don't, if we use the term revocable, I'm sorry about that, it's disposable. Because because first of all, this public profile does not embed your true identity, which is your inbox ID. And if this public profile gets too exposed or too spammy, you can always just discard the profile record, and then you will unsubscribe from the topic, and then that profile is no more, is disconnected from you entirely.
And I think the reason that I said it the way that I did was that once you have followed through and made the connection and are talking to someone over their inbox ID, after that point, then you have disclosed your inbox ID, you have connected with someone, now they have your inbox ID and you're reachable. So that's the connection you can't revoke at that point. But you can discard the greeting and then you're safer from being able to be discovered, but you're still connected to anyone who has reached out to you in the past. And I think, Nick, to your point, it's good to disconnect the topics of profile from greetings so that you do get to discard a greeting without discarding the profile, which is useful for maintaining connections you may have made over the greeting in the past. But yeah, I think that's a good split.
I have maybe a naive question. Why do we need to store the profiles on the XMTP network at all? What if
Versus
they just live somewhere else? They become a QR code. They turn into a link in bio.
versus where? I'm sorry.
Just anywhere but us. I'm wondering, is there an essential need for us to have it on the XMTP network if these profiles are mostly going to be shared out of band anyway?
I mean, I don't see a specific need other than it being universal. I guess, can you expand on like what you have in mind?
Well, if the profile is kind of self-describing and it has, the public key in it, then maybe we don't need to store it on the network at all. It's something that lives on your device, gets synced between your devices, and it turns into a QR code or a share link or some other artifact that lives off of our network, but we never have to write a message with your profile.
Oh, I see.
Only the greetings would ever go onto XMTP, but not the profile itself. I'm wondering what we'd lose in that scenario.
Yeah, because it's not like there's any. It's just an IP that reaches out. Let's say you're hosting the profile on your own server. It's just an IP that reaches out to you. It's not identified. I can't think of any reason why we would have that limitation off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, if we can't think of a good reason, then we might as well not store it and save everyone a tiny amount of money.
in that world, who are you imagining is storing this information? If you put up an invite code somewhere else and I discover you, and this amount of data itself in, say, any compressed form put into a QR code would be too large for really a QR code to handle reasonably.
I'm not,
It'd be a very ugly QR code.
it would be an ugly QR code, but I think this should be small enough to fit into a QR code. If it's not, then it makes it challenging, and then it has to be a pointer. But if the QR code could be self-contained and have everything you need, it would be nice to not have to do a network call, just trust it as is.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of a usability perspective, if you expect someone to scan it, putting a public key in general into a QR code with a 4/3 inflation rate for base 64 is already pushing you to like 3 finder patterns for QR codes. So it gets dense really fast. Then you put bounded but reasonably sized names in there or a URL for a profile photo, and I think you're well past that usability wise. But I mean, more of the question is, so there is effectively a place where you're putting an encoded form of this. And if I were an app developer, that would be my responsibility to host that somewhere, we're saying we're outsourcing that responsibility, but we're supporting a profile spec, or we endorse one.
Yeah, I think that'd be the proposal. I mean, looking at what's in the doc here, it seems like the URL is intending to have a base 64 encoded full profile message as is. And so just based on that, do we need to host it? If we think that we need it to be a topic actually that's going into the URL and the client looks it up because it's too big to fit into a QR code, then that's a different story and we should host on the network.
Yeah, I think the one advantage of it being on network for us is that we get to be opinionated about lifecycle management, about keeping freshness. The deltas are coming through on topics. We have a source of truth. Even if you're offline, you can go fetch in a reasonable way. We can't guarantee freshness of profile data or accuracy if we go off network. Not that we can guarantee either which way, but we can have a certain quality expectation.
Yeah, it does cut both ways though. Lifetimes aren't free on a decentralized network. So then there's the question, how long does the public profile live before you're going to break existing links you've shared on other channels? Yeah, you want the message on our network to be at least as long lived as the pointer.
I think maybe it's useful to take these things separately. Given, I think there's a whole host of things to consider on the profile side, and there's a whole host of things to consider on the greeting side. We spent a lot of time talking about the profile side. The greeting side, any thoughts and feedback on greetings?
I'll take the silence as it's perfect.
So one question I have is around, impersonation and names. Maybe it's a question of just guidance that we give app developers, but the name is totally untrusted and may impersonate an identifier. You might put your name as Vitalik.eth and hope that people are going to think that means that it's a verified DNS record, which you could get from the wallet, but not from the name. So how do we think about making sure that people don't misuse this to impersonate someone?
Yeah, that was that signature section that I kind of waffled with a little bit, where we could post public key or put a public key in the bio of a Twitter handle or a HN profile that could be fetched and validated against with the signature. But that would be a nightmare in scraping. So and maintaining, because we don't have any guarantee that HN might remain the same for 10 years, but JavaScript, or not JavaScript, but X is kind of a nightmare. And so that kind of fell dead in the water.
So the public profile has metadata mapping where you can at least imagine application developers building some form of verifications to, prove your identity. Would it make sense for the greeting to have the same format or something similar where you could also include some sort of external proof, something that could be self-contained? or even the apps have to resolve themselves.
How do you think that would look?
So let's say that World wanted to extend this and they wanted to say, hey, in this greeting, I'm at least going to have a proof of humanity. You can imagine that they would have a key in the mapping that's com.org.world, and it includes the proof of humanity, and people who know how to verify that field could at least verify it and say, hey, this was a message that came from a unique human. If I got two different messages that have the same one of these nullifiers, it must be the same person. Yeah, there'd still be a whole other protocol on top of this to figure out what are the verifications that people could put in, but it would at least give them a surface area to build that.
Yeah. No, like I think it's a good idea. Like we should have some kind of proof of like this is who I am elsewhere. Okay.
Yep. Piggybacking off that thought as well, in terms of an avatar bytes here or a profile photo, if other apps are using this profile to display any image information for the user, it would be helpful to have a service attest that this has been CSAM checked or this is past the pornography filter, or in terms of I will show this to my users and I choose to respect this third-party vendor signature in that regard. Because otherwise I don't want to show unverified data, or I'm as a provider, I'm going to have to do a scan myself. And I'd love to defer that to someone else who does that job in a good way.
Okay. Unless anybody else has anything to add.
One thing on I think we went at a topic ID. So when I did the welcome pointers, the reason I did that was so that I could avoid like 2 round trips of like having to publish a message and then get like the ID of the message. Where this does not like need that speed. It might be better to have it just be like the node and sequence ID that just uniquely identifies a message.
So you're suggesting that we embed that into the profile?
Yeah, like if we just care about a message, but if it is like a topic where you just want the latest one, then the topic is what we want.
Okay.
Great. Well, Coda, did you get the types of feedback and thoughts that you needed?
Yeah, I got plenty of feedback and it's all quite good. So we're not going to be executing on this right away. This is going to be something that's going to be deferred for a couple months, but yeah, I believe the next steps are to address the feedback in the XIP, and then we will revisit this in a couple months.
Fantastic. All right. So you think maybe will we put out the updated XIP in the improvement forum, or do you think we'll hold off?
Yeah, I think it would be a good thing to improve or to handle the feedback and then put it out there.
Okay, well, fantastic. Yeah. All right. So we'll be sharing that out. And of course, we can include this recording with that then.
Okay,
All
cool.
right. Thanks everyone for joining. And thank you, Morgan, as always. All right. Take care all.
See ya. Thank you.
Yeah.